Welcome to Well Coached, a podcast about how people, sales, profit, and self can transform your business. I'm your host, Chris Weinberg, and I have helped hundreds of entrepreneurs get into their highest productivity zone and become corporate enough to succeed. Let's get into today's episode. Hey team, welcome back to the Well Coached podcast. I am super excited today to get my friend Josh Farber going with us here. And this is going to be a different approach. You know, we talk about people, sales, profit, and self on the podcast. And today we are going to lean heavily in to a guy that helps companies control their profit and understand where it lies or how to make it and keep it accountable, all that good stuff, which oftentimes is the bane of existence for entrepreneurs in the creative space. They sometimes don't even care about numbers until they don't have any money. And so Josh for me, has been a unbelievable trusted advisor and partner for several years now. We share clients. We work together on a multitude of things, and it has been a great ride, a great partnership. And you know, if you listen to the podcast, I often say, try as hard as you can, win as soon as you can to get in your highest productivity zone. And if you didn't grow up being an accountant or go to school for it, that's probably not your highest productivity zone. And left to your own accord without knowing or understanding numbers, you can get yourself in real trouble, even when you try to focus on it, when the rest of the world of your opportunity is passing you by. So having a trusted advisor and I like to call it a disinterested party who can give you straight feedback on how the business is going means a ton. And I have found no better resource for me than the guy that we're going to talk to today. And Josh is the vice president of Outsourced accounting for a company called G&A. And he leads his team in developing customized accounting strategies that allow the entrepreneur to go scale his or her business and stay laser focused on their core competency and their core mission. Josh has got an amazing background in public accounting, in private equity leadership, and in various CFO roles. And he's built this career over simplifying complex financial things. And for entrepreneurs, that's so important. I always tell people, whenever you're learning the people, sales, profit, self, typically the last thing entrepreneurs or even people in young companies or big companies ever learn is the profit side of the business. It's the last thing you ever learn. You're learning some other core competencies. So you may get lucky and have some mentor that teaches you, or you may get lucky and survive the school of hard knocks. But at the end of the day, man, let's outsource that stuff and have an expert be an expert. And what I love about Josh's team, the other thing I love about outsourced accounting is that you're not dependent on one person in your organization who may or may not know everything, right? Or may not retire on you next month, or may not be keeping up with the latest regulations. Josh has a team, so there's duplicative processes going on with every single client. It's like you've got a little army beside you versus Aunt Sally running your books. No offense to Aunt Sally. So Josh and his team, they operate, another really interesting thing we'll get into, they operate remotely across the country, which should be of keen interest to us because that is a significant challenge for many companies, and you're probably reading that every day now, how folks are trying to adjust to that. But these guys have it wired. They've got it wired. In addition to that, Josh is a big time family guy. He's got a whole bunch of kids and raises them expertly and plays a lot of golf and keeps himself balanced and has a wonderful team. So Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I need you to do all my introductions. That was fantastic.
Well, well deserved, but we'll dive right into it. We'll start in the lanes, as always, of people, sales, profit, and self, and I'm going to fire away and let you start talking. First question, you have worked with a ton of entrepreneurs across a variety of industries. What are some common financial blind spots that you see in small and mid-sized businesses?
Yeah, good question. Two things come to mind right off the bat. The first thing is understanding what to look for. Like, what should we be getting? Everybody knows, I think the first measure of success as a business starts is how much cash is in the bank. And then the next measure of success is, what do my financial statements look like, and are they good enough to file taxes? Okay. So that gets us to critical what we need, but it doesn't really tell the story. Unlocking that next step is what I think takes longer for folks to realize, which then gets into what's my profitability from my business unit level or my segment level or my product category or my project. So really starting to peel back the onion to tell the story is where it takes folks a little bit longer to get to initially. And that's oftentimes where they start to get frustrated because they maybe intuitively know they need that, but can't articulate what that is.
Would that be kind of they don't know what they don't know, but they know they're missing something?
Sort of, whether the business is thriving or not thriving, they can't quite explain why. And that's an uncomfortable space to be in.
Yeah. I had a client once that I started when they had done, I don't know, maybe $2 million in revenue for the year and got to the end of it and they saw the P&L statement and didn't understand why they didn't have $2 million in the bank.
Yep.
Right. And so that's with creative entrepreneurs or creative mindset people, they're not thinking about, they're just thinking about the top line revenue, go, and not protecting the backside, right?
It is. And the second thing I would also say that's even a little more nuanced is the difference between revenue and even net income and profitability versus how cash behaves.
Okay.
And this varies wildly depending on the type of business. So for like an inventory-based business, if we're in a period where we're growing and we're increasing our inventory, our profitability and our net income might be really strong, but our cash might still be really tight because we've invested it and it's sitting in a warehouse and on the balance sheet. So being able to distinguish between cash flow and P&L profitability is a really interesting thing to get entrepreneurs to understand and to work through.
The numbers need to tell the story, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
We'll dive more into that in a little bit. So you also lead a remote accounting team across the country, and I'm sure that requires an amazing amount of communication and trust. And how do you keep that team aligned and engaged all over the country?
Yeah. So for us, or for me, it started with an operating system that we used when we were in an in-person environment, really between 2017 and 2020. So we put in an operating system that started with daily huddles. It had weekly one-on-ones with your manager. It had weekly check-ins with the team. And as we worked through COVID and saw things shift forcibly into a remote setting, we really started to build our business after that. So as we looked at what that trajectory looked like, we decided to take that best available talent approach regardless of geography. And as soon as we decided on that, we started to adapt all of those business principles and those operating rhythms that we had in an in-person environment and convert it quickly to remote. So some of the rules that we've put in place are cameras are always on. Meetings are held at the same time that they were before. So we keep that same rhythm. Mm-hmm. And then also we seek out and we hire folks that have either proven that they can be successful in a remote, semi-isolated kind of role, and that they want that for their work style.
Okay.
So we fit the culture of the folks that we bring on with the culture of the team, and then we put the proper rules in place to encourage that collaboration and positive culture building despite not seeing each other in person.
No, that's so much there. And I tell you, I get to work with a lot of Josh's teammates. We share a lot of clients together. And what I love about the remote system that you've built, it gives me access to experts living in Timbuktu that I would never have access to before. Yep. And I love the approach. I really think that these guys have mastered it better than anybody else I work with. I love that. And then the other thing you said was the consistency of scheduling and the consistency of the meetings, and that creates credibility for everybody, right? That consistent approach keeps everybody aligned, and the camera's on is a big thing.
Well, it keeps people talking, it keeps people communicating, and it keeps people aligned. Yeah. So each team has a daily huddle at 8:45 Central every single morning. So we have our operating teams holding those independently, but they're all talking, they're all going through the same thing. It's the what's my next 24? What was my last 24? Did I get it done? What are my critical updates, and where am I stuck? And just working through that in a quick 10 or 15 minute huddle sets the tone for the day and makes sure everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Another reason, guys and gals out there listening, to have a team of experts versus Aunt Sally doing your books. Nothing wrong with Aunt Sally. She may be brilliant, but the world may be passing her by, or they may be stuck. And these guys have a strong belief in wisdom is in the group, right? Yep. That there's nothing that your team hasn't seen or can't solve collectively. Because someone on that team's been through it before.
You're right.
Right? Yep. Someone on that team's been through it before. Okay, great. Let's talk about, oftentimes entrepreneurs have a really tough time of letting go of control, right? And especially, I would think, when it comes to finances. How do you help these business owners feel comfortable delegating their accounting needs? Because they're used to doing, especially early stage entrepreneurs are used to doing everything themselves. And then what I find, sometimes entrepreneurs are terrified, or I don't know if terrified is the right thing. They keep the performance of the business very tight to themselves, in fear of, if somebody knows how I'm doing, that might be held against me in some kind of way.
Yeah.
How do you develop that trust, or get them to say, it's yours, Tiger, let's go?
It starts at the very beginning of the relationship. Before the beginning of the relationship, I should say. It starts with our, consultative sales process is a term that is worn out, I think, but that's really what we try to do. So it starts with the very first intro call, where I'm not asking about numbers. I'm not asking about financials. I'm not asking about results. I'm asking about, why did you start this business? What's the mission? What did you do? And then when we can figure out what makes this entrepreneur tick, and then we eventually weave the conversation back to accounting, it creates that sense of credibility and that sense of partnership from day one, or from even the intro before we're really engaged. And then what we do from there is we do a deep dive assessment. So sometimes it's hard just to get folks to give that access to that information, open the kimono, if you will. But once we get in there and we can give that, I forget the term you use, but sort of that unbiased view and that assessment of where things are, highlight those areas of opportunity. And then we start to work towards a custom scope of services that fits in and surrounds their existing people, processes, and technology. Mm-hmm. Now they feel heard. They feel like they've had a hand in designing the process, which they absolutely have. And then it's easier to get that level of trust.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have to execute to keep that level of trust.
Right. Yeah. We'll speak to that too. But one thing Josh and his team, when they take on a client, is kind of like, here comes the cavalry, and you've got a launch team, and then it transitions into a stability team, right? You've got some ninjas that come in and get it right, and then turn it over to the maintainers. You're
100% right. Yeah. We recognized early on that while our entire team is accountants, there are two different kinds of accountants. There are the break it, fix it accountants, and there are the do it right for a long time and make it better kind of accountants. Mm-hmm. So we have a team of break it, fix it ninjas that come in and spend the first 60 to 150 days of the relationship executing the scope of work, doing the bookkeeping, but also refining the systems, fixing the numbering scheme, adjusting the chart of accounts, telling a better story, putting that segmented level of reporting in, recommending new systems, training people, and then towards the end, documenting processes that can then be handed off to that recurring services team with a nice warm handoff.
That's awesome. What do you think about, you got these business owners that they're experts in their craft, but not always experts in financial management. So here you guys come, and I like to think of you as the cavalry. And what do you think the most rewarding part of helping them gain financial clarity is? Like how do you say victory? How do y'all celebrate that? Yeah, man, we're nailing it.
When we can get a high degree of engagement in terms of monthly conversations, and we start to get questions, that's when we know that we've got something good going.
Okay.
So they it's not, it should never be us telling the story or just, reading from a book. The biggest reason why we're involved is because these entrepreneurs, it's not that they can't, but they're not, it's not the best use of their time to go digest an Excel document or get into a QuickBooks report. So when we can take that and put it together in different data visualizations and really tell the story, and also hear and address what their concerns are, what their opportunities are, what their goals and dreams are, when they're able to have that kind of conversation, we know we have a good relationship.
Okay. That's good. All right. Let's move over to the self part a little bit. Entrepreneurs don't always even realize that they need outsourced accounting or CFO services until they hit some kind of roadblock. How do you educate potential clients on the value of what we're doing?
Good question. A lot of that, well, candidly and selfishly, a lot of it helps having a trusted advisor in place, which is a lot of times our path to market.
Okay.
So having their mentors guiding them towards this solution gives an ultimate head start. Now, even in the absence of that, convincing them of the value of the investment, sometimes it takes a couple of stubbed toes. So A lot of times we're not the first accounting solution that a small business works with. A lot of times we're the first professionalized accounting solution that a small business works with. So when we can recognize some of that pain, hear some of that pain, which comes in really three ways. It comes in timeliness of the financial information being passed along to the entrepreneur. It comes in quality or accuracy of the financial information. And then it comes in the insightfulness, which is a little harder to define. Mm-hmm. So any one of those three pain points can be a trigger that we can solve on day one. So there is a place for basic bookkeeping, and it can help businesses get to a certain point. So if they're in that and the basic bookkeeping's working, then we probably aren't the right fit yet. But when one of those three things starts to feel a little friction, a little sand in the gears, we can illustrate that better path pretty quick.
Okay.
And then it's not hard for us to justify the value proposition.
And you can gear up with clients as they grow too, right? Your inbound may not be the last thing we're doing, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
That scale, you do it with folks we work with. Mm-hmm. We may start at a certain service level, and then it changes as their business succeeds.
Yeah. And you talk about wins. Like, that's my favorite kind of win.
Okay.
When we meet someone early on and we can tailor the services to be, basic-ish and also cost-effective for the stage of the business, and then look up a year, 2 years, 3 years down, and then the business has grown by 5x and we've moved into a full-service accounting relationship. Yeah. That's a fantastic journey.
Awesome. A lot of business owners, I think of accountants as number crunchers, but you guys play so much more than that. You're basically a strategic advisor for them. And how do you position G&A as a financial partner and not just a bookkeeper?
So part of it's the team-based approach. So, and I also say this a little delicately because I would not position us as a strategic advisor, although I think we do give some great financial insights. Where we really position ourselves is looking backwards. We're going to tell you the story of exactly what your financial performance has been in the right way. Mm-hmm. So shifting from basic bookkeeping to what I call full service accounting as a team, it comes with a couple of nuances. Number one, there's going to be some technical accounting things that we're usually going to suggest we put in place. Better accrual basis accounting, better capturing these financial insights, better timeliness of the reporting, better internal controls in how we operate these processes. So by really insisting on some of that stuff up front, we begin to differentiate from what to me basic bookkeeping is just turning a set of bank statements into a set of financial statements, but not really telling the story.
Okay.
So then when we get positioned as that, more of an advisory role is where we start to get our senior level team leaders, our controllers involved. So part of what that looks like is after we execute the month-end close process, the biggest piece of the customer relationship is sitting down at the end of the month, and you know this well because you sit on several of them, sitting down at the end of the month for a financial review conversation. And I say a lot, our senior accountants become the play-by-play commentator, mm-hmm. and our controllers are the color commentator.
Okay.
So it's kind of a nice routine and a nice ham and egg approach to really tell the story of the financials and be there as a valued resource. So it is a two-way communication stream.
Want to understand yourself and the people around you like never before? If you've been listening to me talk about the DISC profile, then you know how powerful it can be. But now it's time to take it a step further. Introducing my DISC Profile Mastermind Series, a one-of-a-kind in-person experience designed to crack the code to better relationships, better communication, and ultimately better results. In this exclusive mastermind, I'll be sharing expert insights on how you and the people around you can work best for growth, success, and even profit. Whether you're leading a team, building stronger personal relationships, or just trying to navigate everyday interactions, this is your chance to level up. This mastermind begins May 15th, but here's the thing. This mastermind has very limited space, and it's happening live at the Nashville City Club, right in the heart of the city where business meets creativity. To reserve your spot today, head over to wellcoachedconsulting.com. Spaces are going to fill up fast, so don't wait. That's wellcoachedconsulting.com, where understanding each other isn't just a theory, it's the key to unlocking the next level of your business. Hey team, are you looking to elevate your golf game year-round? Nashville City Golf, located within the Nashville City Club at 200 2nd Avenue South, offers a premier indoor golfing experience right in the heart of downtown. With over 350 real-world courses available on state-of-the-art TrackMan.io simulators, you can challenge yourself on some of the world's most renowned fairways without leaving the city. Whether you're a seasoned golfer or just starting out, our facility caters to all skill levels. Features of the club include TrackMan.io performance tracking, an adjustable swing stage, indoor putting, and great upscale lounge and food and beverage, as well as PGA instruction right on site. Nashville City Golf isn't just about swinging a club, it's about experiencing a revolution in golf practice and entertainment. Our cutting-edge features elevate your game and create an unforgettable experience. We offer flexible membership options to suit your needs, as well as booking for individual sessions. Ready to tee off? Visit NashvilleCityGolf.com to learn more about memberships, book a session, or schedule a lesson with one of our PGA instructors. Elevate your game at Nashville City Golf, where the best of golf meets the best of Nashville. All right, cool. Let's talk about the profit side of the business. And many entrepreneurs don't fully understand their financial statements. On a one-on-one level, what are some key metrics that they need to understand first? Because when I onboard with younger entrepreneurs, they don't have to be young, early stage entrepreneurs, the only thing they're thinking about is revenue.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. First thing, unit economics. Let's separate out the direct cost to support the revenue that we sell versus the indirect cost to manage the business. Because the direct cost to support that revenue we sell is going to increase with every new dollar of revenue. So if our unit economics is not well positioned, if for every t-shirt we sell, we're losing $1, there is no way to sell ourselves to success. We'll just sell ourselves to failure.
Okay.
So understanding that gross profit and that segmentation between direct versus indirect cost is critical.
Okay. And for those out there that are really elementary, gross profit is derived how?
Excuse me. Thank you. Yes. It's revenue minus those direct costs.
So the cost of the t-shirt before you put a logo on it or something?
Or after. The cost,
okay.
So the cost of a t-shirt, the cost of the screen printing to get the embellishments on it, maybe not the cost of shipping and packaging.
Okay.
Whatever is directly related to getting that product or service into the customer's hands.
Okay.
Versus the operating, the non-direct would be office rent, management salaries, business insurance, things that will grow with the size and scale of the business, but not directly proportional to the path of revenue.
You brought up a good point about if our unit economics are not set from the beginning, we can't sell our way out of it. And a lot of entrepreneurs, and sometimes I'll look at financial statements and say, we don't have a cost problem, we've got a revenue problem. But that's only for folks who've already got their cost in line. And to your point, so many folks don't pay enough attention on the front side of what is it going to cost us to sell this, and then what should our pricing strategy be? So,
well, that's where the telling the story of the financials comes in, because a lack of profitability can be any number of things. It can be a volume thing. So our fixed indirect operating costs are too high for the level of revenue that we have, so we need to increase revenue. It could be a pricing thing. Our prices are too low. So as we sell more, it's not generating enough money. Those are really the two levers, right? Like pricing or volume. But being able to distinguish on which one of those is, then I would imagine it gives you a great path forward to where do we need to start focusing
Right.
to fix it.
No, I love it. I know that there's one reason that I try to get all my clients to come your ways, because I know that what I'm reading is clean, and it, like you said, the numbers tell me a story about the ahas, right?
Yeah.
If you, with clean financial statements, you get an aha very quick if you know how to read it.
Yep.
With bad financial statements, it is like reading a foreign language or something that just doesn't matter at all.
Right.
Right. Just and man, I see it all the time. I'm sure you do too.
Yes,
and
that's why we exist.
It's why you exist. Yeah. You talked a little bit about cash flow, and that's such a major challenge for small businesses. But what are some of those most common cash flow mistakes, and how should owners be navigating?
So,
and maybe even tell us what cash flow is.
Yeah. Cash flow is, again, it's different than profitability of the business. It is that it's the business profitability net of investments in assets, net of what you take out of the business as the owner.
Right.
So I think, where we see folks stumble sometimes is, it depends on the kind of business.
Okay.
Let's use sort of a product-based business. Mm-hmm. So managing and controlling inventory is wildly critical. So how do you manage and control inventory? Meaning, do we need to have $500,000 of inventory on hand, or can we get by with $50,000 of inventory on hand? Because that's a $450,000 difference between cash in the bank or cash
sitting on the shelf
in your vendor's bank and on your shelf.
Okay.
Right. So, but even then, we got to work upstream and figure out what's our budgeted sales targets, what's our demand out there, so that we can then optimize what we want our inventory to be, and then we can figure out, do we have the cash flow for it? So it can't be done in a silo.
Right.
The biggest thing we see early on is folks not being in front of the curve when we track things like accounts receivable and accounts payable. When we are looking at our financial statements in such a retrospective kind of way, only when the cash has already happened, we're sort of chasing it.
Right.
When we can get ahead of it, and when we get a bill from a vendor and we know it's due in 30 or 45 days, we get it into the financial statements. And now we're talking, basic accrual accounting, mm-hmm. and we can start to see over the next 30 days, over the next 60 days, over the next 90 days, here's what our obligations are. Let's make sure we have cash set aside to make sure we can satisfy those obligations.
And so to that end, for many of your clients, you do weekly cash flow statements. And I think entrepreneurs don't even think that way. They're only early on, uneducated, right? And arguably the most important of all three of cash flow, P&L, balance sheet. On a daily basis, the cash flow statement is the make or break, right?
Yeah, the weekly. So it does two things. Number one, for me, it helps make sure that we are executing our scope of work on a weekly basis. So it keeps us in check. But for the clients, it's their operating dashboard.
Right.
They get used to seeing this report at the same time on the same day of every single week in the same format. So in 15 minutes, they can sit down and they can see, what's my cash in the bank? What's my obligations? Like, what have I spent on credit cards that I haven't paid for in cash yet? What is sitting in accounts payable that I owe to my vendors? And then what's sitting in accounts receivable that I need to go collect to make sure I stay ahead of this cycle? Mm-hmm. So getting those four critical pieces of information lets them make really smart business decisions quickly and without waiting 30 or 45 or 60 or 90 days when it's too late to really effectuate the change.
And I love the weekly cash flow statement and dashboard that you guys do, because for me, what I see with entrepreneurs is they're usually super intimidated on the front side of this relationship, but the reps of that weekly cash flow dashboard, the reps of it make the nervousness disappear.
Yep.
They start understanding what they're looking at.
Yep.
And
it helps create that connection. So we're interacting on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis. So as we need stuff to be a good partner, because it is a partnership. It cannot, accounting cannot just be done by throwing stuff in the closet and letting it spit out beautifully. It does involve some activity from the client. So that helps create that cadence and create that level of mutual responsiveness.
Yeah, there's a book called Managing by Harold Janine. I think he wrote it in the 50s or 60s, but he was a big management guru way back in the day, but he was super numbers oriented. And he had a great quote that I love called "The drudgery of the numbers will set you free." And that's the way I think of, like, my mind wants to go to creative stuff, but I'm hopefully over the course of years are disciplined enough to know that those numbers, they are the disinterested party just telling me the truth without opinion.
Yeah.
And being able to count on a team like yours to where it's accurate, I can trust what I'm staring at, is very different than having to listen to someone on the other parts of the business that may or may not be motive driven, even by accident, maybe putting their own color commentary. The numbers are just the numbers. They don't have an opinion.
Yes. It took me a while in my career not to internalize the numbers as the people that are reporting the numbers.
Right.
But it is important.
Yeah. We'll head in the self category here a little bit. Your career has evolved from public accounting to CFO roles to leading an outsourced finance team. What drew you to helping small businesses with their financial strategies?
I went through a shift. I started my career as a profit center, if you will, doing professional services work for organizations. And then I spent the better part of the next decade as a cost center within those corporate entities.
Okay.
And as I worked through that progress, I realized it was much more fun being a profit center than being a cost center. And maybe the underlying impact is it's much more fun helping people and providing a valuable service than it is just keeping track behind the scenes. So it was kind of by happenstance, really. I got the chance to support a small business here in Nashville called XMI, where I was the CFO, and we had both HR and payroll and a bookkeeping business is really what it was. But being able to work with these talented accountants, coach them and teach them to be more value add, more partnership focused, more customer service focused, and at the same time find these clients where we could use these skills and use this solution that I had put in place and built several times in $100 million organizations. And then as I got exposure and visibility into the small business space, just saw, number one, the complete lack of anything anywhere close to it, the lack of anything anywhere close to it available in the marketplace, and they can't afford nor shouldn't spend the money to build a whole team.
Right.
So that was sort of the light bulb moment where we don't have to rewrite the playbook. The playbook exists. We just need to change the playbook. So now our teams are controllers, senior accountants, and staff accountants. That's the same basic team that I had in place at much larger organizations. So we take that same approach, that same team dynamic, the same roles and responsibilities and segregation of duties and layers of review and overlap, and we fractionalize it down for the small business community. So now we take that team, and instead of supporting one client like they would if it was a major client, they're supporting a handful of clients, but still together and still in a team-based approach. So having that realization of how important the team was made it pretty easy to just take that natural service motion and design it to service a multitude of clients.
Yeah. So, guys, Josh just spoke to a transferable skill set, basically, and we talk about that a lot. Like, everybody's got it. Sometimes people don't recognize that you probably have a transferable skill set sitting in you, and you did. You took it from big into what you're doing now, and it works. Another reason, guys, that he's ringing the bell on outsource your accounting, man. you got multiple eyes on it, and to me, those are fail stops. Like, you've got multiple eyes on something in case Jimmy is sick today. There's someone who can see it and look, or if someone has a vacation or a leave or things like that, you're not dependent on one person. You've got duplicity sitting in your organization.
I say a lot. Our two biggest values to entrepreneurs are business continuity.
Yes.
The business can continue without reliance on one person. But beyond that too, and you touched on this a little bit, is the segregation of duties. Mm-hmm. So, you read a lot, accountants take advantage of clients.
Yep.
Like, that will not happen with us. And part of that is because we have 3 people in there with the proper layers of review and approval. So there is no opportunity for one person to make a bad decision.
And even further than that, you're a CPA, but y'all don't do CPA work.
Exactly right.
That's on purpose.
On purpose.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like Chris just said, CPAs. So to me, there are 3 buckets of accountants. The first one is the CPA. And this is Josh's interpretation, so other folks might give a different one. CPA, tax, audit, compliance. We need a great partner there. It's critically important. And they can be strategic too, so we need a good strategic partner there. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I would say our strategic advisory, CFO level, whether it's in-house or whether it's fractional. So these folks, they want to look forward. They want to help with things like capital raises, selling the business, finding a new banking relationship, getting debt to grow, sort of this really strategic non-number crunching type stuff. But in the middle, to make both of those bookends be able to work, somebody's got to do the week-to-week bookkeeping and accounting. And that's where we plug in. So by having 3 independent parties, then you get even more looking over the shoulder and checks and balances and de-risking your business.
Perfect. What's been the most challenging thing ever in your career? Most challenging moment?
We had a client years ago where I think the client knew and we knew that the systems were not dialed in. This is the operating system that feeds the accounting system. The operating systems were not giving the insight to properly reconcile the books. And we were sort of mutually making estimates, but the estimates were not accurate enough. And I let this persist too long. This was early in my career. And it ended when it eventually escalated to a point where we all sort of looked at each other and knew exactly what was going on, but we should have pulled the plug long before that. We should have said, guys, we're doing you a disservice. We're not able to execute this work at the quality that we expect to, and we need to either fix it or withdraw. And we didn't do that. That was a major turning point.
Yeah.
So now the first thing, like one of my personal main values is candor. We'll tell when we can do a great job. We'll tell when we can't do a great job. Mm-hmm. And if we can't do a great job, we're not going to do it. So that turning point really influenced how we've built the operation, how we've defined the ideal client profile, and how we've executed that service motion for our clients.
Okay. So thank you. So given that, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice when starting out in the finance and accounting, what would it be?
Mainly starting out with finding clients and servicing clients. Not every dollar of revenue is created equally.
Okay. Amen. Amen.
Find the people that appreciate you. Find the people that are conceptually and philosophically aligned with how you want to do business, and invest all of your energy and time into those people.
That's great advice. And my analogy of that is when you're starting a business, you'll basically say yes to anybody who's willing to give you $1, and that can become problematic very quickly. So as soon as you can funnel down into your niche or who value aligns with you, the better. And that's an art too.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to walk away from certain things. For sure.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great. Josh has been a trusted advisor for me for years, and for clients that we work on together. And I think a lot of his brain, and I think a lot of the people that he has around him. And I think the lesson here, guys, that I want you to take today is you have a zone of genius, and your zone of genius doesn't need to cover every single topic. And mine sure doesn't. If I could do what he does, I wouldn't be partnering up with him. And that doesn't mean I don't know how to read a financial statement, but I'm most excellent when I can go do something else and let his team cover the financial statements. And so as you grow as an entrepreneur, to me, one of the first decisions you want to make is making sure that your reporting and accounting structure is up to snuff. Even if it's a little painful in the beginning from what you feel like is an investment standpoint, it will allow you to make better decisions to get the business moving even faster. So Josh, thanks a ton for being here today.
Thank you, Chris. It's my pleasure.
As always.
Thank you for having me.
All right, team, that's it. Go follow us on all the podcast places where you get it, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. If you like this episode, share it and tell all your friends about it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.